purpose of this video is to examine the issue of whether or not the Babylonians observed an eclipse in 568 BCE as mentioned in the VAT4956. Modern programs and eclipse canon show that it would not have been seen, but as we will examine from the text, there is apparent evidence that it was seen. In actuality, we have evidence that the astronomy programs are 16 hours off from the correct lunar times, and the VAT4956 is now confirming that for us. So here we go. First, we're going to look at the meaning of nim-dib. Nim means high, and dib means upper right, so nim-dib is a reference to the high upper right quadrant. And so this line should be translated: Saturn was in front of the band of the swallow and 1/2 cubit below Venus. Mercury was 8 fingers high above right, that is, of Saturn. This is translated by Hermann Hunger as being a reference to Mercury, but we're going to see by looking at the astrographs that this is not a reference to Mercury. So first we're going to look at the relative position of Saturn to the band of the swallow, which is in Pisces. We see it's closest to the band, closer than Venus or Mercury. So Saturn is in front of the band of the swallow. So that's confirmed. This is just the relative positions of those planets on that date, month 12, day 12. We're going to start looking at the measurements between the different planets to confirm the text. Here we go. We measured the distance between Saturn and Venus, which is 1/2 cubit, as the text says. We divided that into 3 parts of 4 fingers each. A half a cubit is 12, and that gives us the relative position of Mercury, being 8 fingers below. 8 fingers above and to the right of Saturn. So 1 finger is 1/24 of a cubit. 12 fingers is a half a cubit. We can see Saturn is 1/2 cubit below Venus, and it's 8 fingers below Mercury. So the correct translation should be Saturn is 1/2 cubit below Venus. Mercury was 8 fingers high above right, which is nim-dib, to Saturn. So now we're going to look at the eclipse, which is in line 17 on the obverse side of the VAT4956. Here is the transliteration and the translation, and it shows Hermann Hunger translated this as a lunar eclipse was omitted because the times by our astro programs show that it wasn't seen. Anku Sin Sa Dib. Anku means eclipse, Sin means moon, and Sa Dib is at the upper right. So this should be translated a lunar eclipse at the upper right. Hunger translated this as a lunar eclipse which was omitted, and that's because our modern programs and the times that they have assigned to these eclipses would show that this eclipse would not have been seen at Babylon. But the Babylonians used a special term when something wasn't observed. And of note, the location of the eclipse in ancient texts was a reference to the exit point. So dib refers to the upper right quadrant in the Babylonian astronomy. So for an eclipse, it means the eclipse exited at the upper right. But that also means the eclipse had to be observed. But when an anticipated event is not seen, the Babylonians simply indicated that by using the term nupap, or not seen. And this term appears twice in the VAT4956, but not in reference to the eclipse. Here's the 2 examples of that term being used in the VAT4956. So this is a term that was not foreign to this text. It could have used it in connection with this eclipse, but it didn't. So that suggests, of course, that that eclipse was observed. So if this eclipse was not seen, why not simply indicate new pop? The VAT4956 indicates the eclipse exited at Dib, which means the upper right quadrant. But what does the actual eclipse show? Did it exit at the upper right quadrant or not? Yes or no? Well, we get a chance to look and see if it did. So we found a location at the same latitude as Babylon. There's the eclipse. And as you saw, it did exit at the upper right. The upper right, there's a still of that. Observation is at latitude for Baghdad, which is close to Babylon. The longitude is in an area where the eclipse was actually observed. And if you divide the moon into 4 quadrants, you can see the last exit point of the eclipse was Dib, which is upper right. So they apparently did see the eclipse, right? Here are our conclusions. Number 1, this eclipse was indeed seen from Babylon. Number 2, we cannot trust astro-program lunar times. And number 3, you cannot trust astrotext translators like Hermann Hunger. For one reason, as we noted, he mistook Saturn for Mercury, or Mercury for Saturn. He thought Dib meant omitted when he used the astro programs to decide that the eclipse wasn't seen. And that probably had to do with the fact that he didn't have at his disposal the modern astro programs. So that explains that.